so many single barrel bourbons. How do you know what to look for what distillery? Well, stick around and find out
after this.
All right, guys, welcome back. Thanks for watching. Please hit that subscribe and like button and let us know what you think of the videos. So today we're going to talk about single barrel bourbons and kind of the differences between them and what we think from certain distilleries, like kind of what to look for or what we think about them.
Yeah, so what stands out?
Yeah.
What makes them unique and special?
So first I'm going to talk about Blanton's. Blanton's is a very touchy subject in the bourbon world because of the taters.
Yeah.
Like you're going to go hunt it down, right? Yeah. Because it's got a cool bottle and because it's got a name that people recognize.
Yeah.
But the reason it's up here is because Blanton's was the original single barrel bourbon, right? So we're talking about single barrels. This is kind of where it started. And it really did kind of start as a marketing strategy at a time when bourbon was kind of down.
At their rock bottom.
Yeah.
The Black Ages.
Yeah. So
the medieval times.
So Buffalo Trace came up with the idea of, hey, let's release these as a single barrel. We'll just go and we take our honey barrels. Look at the honey holes. The Blanton's is aged in warehouse H.
Yep.
In Buffalo Trace, and it's kind of like their honey warehouse. So we're going to go and pick and pull these specific barrels, and we're going to market it as a single barrel, and we're going to put it in this cool bottle. And it didn't sell well at first. It took a while before it really kind of took off.
Yeah.
But if you look at it now in the whiskey world, that's kind of one of the bottles that
people are lining up out the doors before it even hits the shelf, so it's never on the shelf anymore.
Right. but that was the whole idea behind it. We're going to go to our honey warehouse and we're going to bottle this as a single barrel instead of batching it up. And it was kind of the first of its kind. So it was kind of innovative at the time.
Yeah, innovative. And then just from a whole honey hole standpoint, just going from like your Wild Turkey with Russell's and your Old Forester, they definitely have their particular warehouses that typically stand out far superior than the others. I know for Russell's, this one right here is a Camp Nelson. This one's also a state pick, but more importantly, it has all the information of where it came from. So a lot of people look on the label to see where that pick came from, to see if it is that Camp Nelson, to say like, okay, that should be a really good one. And I know with Old Forester, this is the one we're actually drinking today. This one's a Warehouse G. We have a little bit left. It's where we're trying to do a little bottle kill here. But this one's from Warehouse G, and I know for them usually it's Warehouse K, so it's pretty close to where that main one is. But a lot of good bottles from those particular warehouses that are a little more sought after than other ones, despite being going to be a great pick regardless, but they're a little more superior.
Yeah, and with the Russells in particular, if you look on the back and you see the CN, that's one of the Camp Nelson warehouses. That's kind of what you want to look for sure. And like you said, Warehouse K for the Old Forester tends to be the most sought after because that's the warehouse that tends to have the most like fluctuation
with the heat.
So the barrels got more circulation and stuff like that. So
exactly, all good stuff though from these two distilleries.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is how some distilleries you have to look at, who made this pick, where did the pick come from, who's involved. And other distilleries, that's not so important.
Yeah.
So some distilleries, the difference between their single barrels, the variance is pretty light, right? So I like to use Jack Daniel's as that example. To me,
you can also use Knob Creek.
Knob Creek fits that as well.
Yeah.
So with those particular Knob Creek single barrels and Jack Daniel's single barrel proofs, the variance is not that great between barrels. I mean, yes, you do have some barrels that are better than the others, but you're not likely to have like crazy swings. Yeah. So if I go like, this is off the shelf, this is just grabbed off the shelf, it's not a pick by anybody, and I've had a ton of bottles like this, and I think I've had one bad one and maybe a couple of dozen bottles.
Yeah.
Their profile tends to say similar across barrels, and I don't know why.
They're very uniform.
Yeah, I don't know why. But you're right, they are uniform. So that's something where I'm happy to grab that off the shelf. It doesn't need to be a pick. I don't have to question it. I just know if I don't have a bottle and I need a bottle of a Jack Daniel's barrel proof, I'm just looking at the proof really. Yeah. Right? Because the proof ranges, and to me, the 130 to 133 is like the honey spot for those barrel proofs. Now the Knob Creeks are always 120.
Yep.
Right. But again, whether it's a pick from somewhere, like that's a pick, or it's just that single barrel select, they're always good.
Always good.
It's just,
I've not had a bad one.
I've not had a bad one either.
They are delicious.
So if you're looking like, hey, I don't know where to buy, or I'm worried that I'm going to get a bad barrel, if you look at those two in particular, the Jack Daniel's Barrel Proof or the Knob Creek Single Barrel, you can be pretty, it's just assured that doesn't matter where it's from, you're going to have a decent bottle.
Yeah, they're going to be good regardless. And I know we've actually been very fortunate. I personally have done 2 picks at a New Riff. Todd's done 1 more than I have, or I've done 5. Okay, take that back. He's done 3 more than me. But with that being said, I know you've had a unique experience for what you've done in that process and how they do theirs. But I was very fortunate. I've done a rye and I've done a bourbon, and I've had a great time picking them. And there's always been usually one that's like not that great, and then there's a couple that are decent, and there's usually one that's like a little bit more of a standout.
Yeah, so when you get New Riff, when you're doing a barrel pick, they give you, if you're doing it in person, they give you 6 different samples, so 6 different barrels they pull from. And you're right, every time I've done one, I've done them 5 of them now, there's been one barrel that was just bad.
Yeah.
Tasted like something went wrong, and it's immediately everybody agrees, and it's been tossed out.
Pretty quickly.
Then you'll have a couple that are good, and then the others, like 2 to 3 that are like standout. And then it's kind of like a variance between those 3 on which one you want to pick. But to me, and I've also spoken to people who have grabbed New Riff bottles just off the shelf and told me, New Riff's awful. I had this single barrel, it was awful. Well, I kind of believe it could be possible because I've had some bad barrels.
Yeah.
So for a New Riff, I would not grab a single barrel that wasn't picked by someone or a store that I didn't believe knew what they were doing. But they do produce really, really good single barrels. It's just there's the possibility of it being a bad barrel if you're getting a random one that was just bottled and shipped off to a store and not chosen by anyone.
Yeah.
And the same stays true. It's not just New Riff that holds true with. It does it with some others, and none of the ones up here really I can think of where there's such a wide variance. But there are some other distilleries that are like that. In fact, I'll say, and some people might disagree, but I've had some Elijah Craig private barrels that I didn't think were that good.
See, I haven't had too many of those to find out.
So I've had some that were like super hot with a little bit of bitterness, like maybe they were over oaked or something, and I didn't particularly like. And I've had some really good Elijah Craig private barrels. Now, I'm not talking about the barrel proof batches. I'm talking about the private.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I haven't had too many of those,
Yeah.
so I can't really speak to it. But
so to me,
I can see that.
Yeah, to me, Elijah Craig's one that can have that variance, kind of like we were talking about with New Riff.
Yeah. So now, what about Four Roses? Cask strength ones, they have 10 different recipes to try.
Well, the Four Roses, the barrel strength ones.
Sorry, barrel strength. Yes.
Yeah, the barrels,
single barrel strength.
Barrel strength.
Yeah.
Those will always be picked by someone.
Yeah.
So they don't just barrel them at barrel strength and release them to stores.
Yeah.
You can only get a barrel strength if it's picked by like the master distiller at the distillery.
Yeah.
Or a group.
And this one is actually the Mellow Moments.
And this one was done by Mellow Moments, by
So
Mellow Moments
2023.
members. Mellow, if you don't know, we have a video coming out where we talk about it. Mellow Moments is a kind of a club that you can try to get in and join.
Yep.
It's hard to get in, but
if you're in, you're in.
yeah, you can look up our video on it. But yeah, so for the Four Roses barrel strength, it's always going to be a pick from somewhere. They don't just release those as shelfers like New Riff or Jack Daniel's or even Knob Creek would do.
Yeah.
Right. So those are always going to be picked by someone.
Yeah.
Now, whether they're good or bad, I think it's less about the pick and more about the recipe.
Yeah.
With Four Roses.
I agree.
So I think you have to know if you like that recipe to determine if you're really going to like that bottle.
Yeah, and for me, my recipe is OBSO. So
Yeah,
if you have any extra of
OBSO,
those,
yeah.
invite me over.
OBSO was my favorite OB recipe, and OESO is my favorite OE recipe.
I need to go through the OEs, but the OBSO is definitely hands down my overall favorite.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I'm looking at the Four Roses, I'm looking more at the recipe than I am who picked it, honestly.
Yeah.
And the age statement, because they usually have the age statement on them as well.
Yeah. Now I know we have 2 more bottles over here. Now you kind of want to get more involved with those than my knowledge. But kicking off here, we have King's Family Distillery. So what's your talking points on this one?
So I brought that one up because I want to say not all single barrels are necessarily from the distillery that has their name on them, right?
Yes.
So King's is an NDP, the non-distiller producer. They actually buy barrels from somewhere else. In this case, this is an American light whiskey. And so it comes from MGP, because MGP is the only place that has...
This bottle is really good.
That has that has aged American light whiskey. The only place it comes from is from MGP. So you will have some places that will buy barrels from other distilleries and then bottle them as single barrels. So that's kind of why I had this up here, just to show, it's not always like all the rest of these, it's their juice. It's aged in their warehouses. In this case, you got MGP that was then taken to Tennessee, and it spent several years aging in Tennessee. So you can still see a variance between the light whiskey from here and say a light whiskey from someone who bought it from MGP and then took it up to Michigan to age for years, right? Because you got 4 or 5 years aging in different climates.
Very different climates. Yeah, very different climates. And then the last one over here is some very special Texas whiskey or bourbon. This one is actually a pick by the master distiller.
Master blender.
Or sorry, master blender. I apologize, master blender.
Yeah, so I have that one up here because I wanted to point out that sometimes it's not a group that's making the pick. It's someone else from the distillery.
Yeah.
In this case, Nancy Fraley, who's very well known in the whiskey world and does a great job, and she's been across multiple distilleries. She's the master blender for Still Austin, and she handpicked this barrel to bottle. So this was a pick done by her. So
for her stamp of approval.
Right. So if you got someone who's that well respected and whose palate is that well believed or whatever, then you see her name's on there as a Nancy's pick. You grab it. And we have the same kind of thing with Four Roses. You can get a lot of Brent Elliott picks because a lot of the ones done at the distillery were chosen by him.
Yeah.
And
I have a few of those.
Yeah, and
they are quite good.
The best, and like I said, I think pretty much all these are good, but the best single barrel proof Jack Daniels I ever had was a pick done by Chris Fletcher.
Yeah.
So
he should know his own juice.
Right.
Just like obviously Nancy does and obviously Brett over here.
Right. So when you find something that's done by someone that, this person really must know what they're doing and they're doing the pick. Yeah, that's a buy.
Yeah. Easy.
Yeah,
Easy.
absolutely.
Just take my money.
Yeah. So kind of just in conclusion, just to wrap up, you got to kind of know your distilleries and what they're offering. And in some cases, where's the honey hole? And in others, is it something I can grab off the shelf, or do I really need to look for the pick? And if I do need to look for the pick, where am I looking for?
Do you trust the people? Do you have similar palates?
Yep.
Or is it purely just going based off of the namesake? Are you going off of the master distiller or master blender?
Yep.
I know, like I said, these two are heavy hitters in those departments. So.
Right. Yeah. And even though it's not up here, John J. Bowman's another one. They have a lot of picks done by the master distiller at John J. Bowman that are out there. So, I hope that gave you guys some information about single barrels if you're just now delving into the world, if you're new to it. And let us know what you think. What are some of your favorite places to get single barrels, or favorite distilleries that you think release the best single barrels?
Yeah.
And just kind of give us your opinion.
Yeah, exactly. Let us know.
All right. So, everybody, be safe out there. And remember, the best bourbon or whiskey
is the one you like the most.
And maybe a single barrel.
I think it's a single barrel.
All right.
They're usually my favorite.
Thanks, guys.